Well, good morning, folks. Today is a special day. Today, I'm filming what will be my 100th video. And as I verge on the 100,000th view, 100 videos, 100,000 views. And that's just the YouTube segments. 99. This will make it 100. It's interesting. We've reached some people. The reception has been mixed. I'm not a young person with physical appeal necessarily, so that's a lot of the clickbait out there, scroll bait, whatever you call it. So that's really not what I'm about. I'm not about getting all the views. I will admit I did do one thing to get views, and that's because I realized that if I drop a curse word, the algorithm really disfavors the videos. And so I did stop cursing, at least made an effort to. A, it's not helpful. B, it just doesn't help the message. And what's the message, right? Safety. I've seen a lot of people die in my career, and I'm thinking, how can we make something of this? I've got to commute in an old car. I can't listen to Spotify in this car. There's the Coffee Grounds Farm. I went to an event there last night. Nice little place. Nice to meet those folks. At any rate, I was on a train of thought that wasn't half bad there. Yeah, so I've got this commute. I've got this knowledge, this background. And I thought, what do we do with it? How do we combine it? If I can share things that have killed others that maybe might save a life, it's a pretty darn good way to spend a commute, if you ask me. There's a lot of things that we can learn about the highway, about smart things to do when you're in a crash. I sometimes, to the point of obsession, nearly think about what to do in a time of crisis. Largely, look at this guy walking in the street. Now we've got an oversized truck and trailer. He's coming to a stop, nearly, as he has no choice. Woof. Here's my mirror, make sure he's okay. He's okay. Another safe interaction. But my point is this. When you're in a crash and the hormones and adrenaline are all taken over, what are you going to do? Can you prepare yourself mentally for that situation? And can you condition your mind in a way to shape your reaction so that you do the smart thing? So that the actions you take can save your life, save the life of those with you, so on and so on. This is really, I think, that the key question is for this channel, this exercise for me is, and others I hope, is preparing yourself for these moments so that the preparation can kick in and help you in that time of crisis. And that's the idea. You hear these tools, and there's a tool that you can use to break your window, for example. And I've heard, the commercials and advertisers for this tool say, keep it in your car. So if you need to, you can break your window from the inside. It's a special tool that's used to do it. I don't know a lot more than that. This tool will get you out of your car potentially. Well, will it? So I thought, okay, I'll get the tool and I'll keep it in my side pocket of the door here in the car. bottom of the door, there's a little tray. And I thought, well, what happens if this car really rolls over? Is it going to still be in the tray? Will I be able to reach it if I'm hanging upside down? It's either in the tray or it falls out and slides to the back of this large SUV. How good is this tool going to be? Frankly, there are a lot of things that you could use in a situation like this. The first thing I'm thinking of is something to cut a seatbelt with. Having that handy would be useful. What's the right tool for that? If you get a sharp blade or a fillet knife or something, you're going to cause more harm to the person you're extricating than you help by removing the seatbelt, because you're going to cut them up pretty good in the lap. Or do you really want a fillet knife going in by your general region? I don't think so. You need light sources. I've said this over and over again. You need to have some outstanding sources of warning lights. I'm talking about rainproof, powerproof, flares, cones, flashlights, and not a cell phone. Okay, a cell phone's maybe better than nothing, but don't expect. Oh boy, don't expect me to make this flight today. Son of a gun. I suspected something like this would happen. At any rate, what do we know? About 100 videos. I've tried to share things that I've seen on the commute, things that I've sort of come across in my day-to-day, without compromising any confidential information, of course. And just tried to get some word out there and make social media not something that's just watching a guy ask out a girl when it was probably rehearsed to begin with. And when I say, why am I watching this? Why is this occupying space in my life? It's not helping me. It's not moving the needle forward. And not everything I've done on this channel has moved the needle forward necessarily either, but there have been moments, and certainly more than just wasted time or blather. It's conversation, it's thinking. My demo skews about 87% male, between 25 and 55. And I'd like to think that there is some common ground in our tiny corner of the internet for what we're talking about here. And these are important things. If you've got a long commute like me, your odds of being in a crash are higher. They just are. It's a function of miles traveled, time on the road. Now, is it better to have a regular commute every day at 7 to 8 a.m.? Yes. It's not as good if you're traveling. I had a job once where I traveled all over the place by car. And I would be going down strange roads. I'd leave at 5 in the morning to get somewhere by 8 in the morning. And it was, can you bet whether I had a crash? What I had, actually the main event I had was going off the side of a road slightly and destroying 2 of my tires on a very poorly maintained state highway way over in eastern Missouri. And I was in the middle of nowhere. I was really in the middle of nowhere. And thankfully I had cell service. I mean, when you lose 2 tires, you're in trouble, right? It was the front right tire and the rear right tire. Both popped. It was on a sharp, edge of the road. And frankly, I was looking at a phone. I was looking at my phone, setting up GPS or something to set myself on course, and I went a little bit over the edge, and that road didn't have any edge to give me. And so some of that's obviously my fault, but So what happens next? I found a tow company. I paid that tow company $99, which I consider to be a blessing. They took me to a tire shop where I got new tires, and they rotate them so that it wasn't a big deal. And when you buy 2 at a time, it works well. And what is going on here? I guess we're merging down again. So I got the 2 new tires. It was, a few $100s. But by the time I got towed, I think I was towed into a city called Osage Beach, Missouri, near the Lake of the Ozarks, actually. I think that's where it was. There was a nice restaurant nearby, the tire shop. So I got to go and I ate a nice meal and charged it to my employer with beer and fries and all the comforts of having a crummy day. Got my tires repaired, not repaired, but replaced, and then I drove home and learned the lesson, right? And these experiences should hopefully, anytime you have something like that, autopsy, autopsy, autopsy. Learn a lesson. What could I learn from this misfortune? And for me, it was, yikes, 2 tires, that stunk. But, I was getting paid just the mileage alone driving over to that corner of the state and back. That paid for the tires, right? So I didn't really lose money other than the extra gravy on top I should have gotten on top of my salary. So there's some perks-ish there. Not all disasters are disasters. Not all misfortune has to be a disaster. When I think about folks that I've seen dead, and I look at their photos and I pay their claims or don't pay their claims or whatever the situation calls for, I think, what can I do for these folks to give their life some meaning? Not necessarily their life, but the story of their demise. How can we give that some meaning? How can we learn something from the fact that somebody lost a loved one? And to me, there are lessons. Lessons behind the demise of the folks that I've had to see. There's too many to talk about. I don't want to give away confidential information either, obviously. But I try and distill down the stories and share the lessons that I glean from the story. It's a lot easier to sort of autopsy a misfortune by someone else than by yourself, because you don't want to make yourself at fault for anything you've done. You don't want to necessarily even think about or reconjure the memories, because sometimes the accident was very traumatic to you. I had a crash in a car. I was hit from behind and knocked into the median. I'm sure I've talked about it before. On a regular commute. An area that I've always thought was a sort of snake-bitten area of the highway system here in town. And the next day, I go home. I think I'm okay. I call the insurance. They tell me they're not helping. I've got to figure out what to do about my car. I picked up the bumper and tried to fit it inside the car and drive home. And someone drove me to dinner in their car. And I came home, and the next day I just kept seeing the images of the Jersey wall flying at my face. And I'm hurtling in this car without any control over the car. It was not pleasant. And I just kept seeing this imagery. And I said, I'm not getting in a car today. I'm not going anywhere in a car. I'm just not going to do it. And naturally, that's impractical. And I knew it was impractical and irrational. But to me, that was really how I felt. My wife said, "We need to go somewhere. Come on." And I said, "No, I'm not doing it. I'm not sounding board that people need in these situations. And, you know, in a couple of minutes I was in a car. Let's just put it that way. But I was pretty stubborn and firm about it in my own head. And it's tough for people to get around that sometimes, especially if they were hurt or had a near-death experience. But when you get to sit in the sort of ivory tower that I am in, where I get to see a much broader range of severity, so to speak, without having any of the emotional investment in the incident or the individuals in the incident, it's a helpful vantage point. And that puts me in a more unique space, I think, to learn something or glean a lesson from a tragedy. And, you know, frankly, if you're the responding officer, the last thing you want to do is, so to speak, owe the dead, right? Their mistake was X and Y, or you're going to tell the next of kin that necessarily. You hear stories about it. Oh boy, do we hear stories. Not the ones even that I do, but the ones that other people do that they can't not talk about, or the case may be. Wild stuff. Wild stuff that need not be repeated. No amount of intoxicants will get me to spill the beans, that's for sure. But, you know, it's special to me to think that I've spoken at a conference with a few hundred people before, but I've never spoken to 100,000 people. I'm not Taylor Swift. I'm not Ed Sheeran or somebody, you know. I don't have art to share. I don't have talent in that regard. But to think that I've reached 100,000 people, even if for just a few seconds, you know, short reel or something, that's not without meaning to me. Obviously, it's not like I said, it's not fully loved, but it's also not a fully baked concept either, right? There's some room for growth and maturity and refinement of the mission and the message and the branding, frankly. But again, I'm not interested in branding. I'm not interested in profiting. I'm just interested in continuing to do what I'm doing. That's fine with me. There's some regulars here that watch every second of everything, and then there's, you know, people who subscribe because they want to know what's going on and what happens. And you know, that's great. It's great if you want to subscribe, and if you like the videos, you help more people hear the message. That's always appreciated. If you think there's something here that somebody needs to know, share it with them. It doesn't have to be on a social platform, but it could just be a conversation next time you talk to them. If you've got a teenager, oh boy, now that's interesting. Thought there is talking to young drivers. I think that could be a very intriguing and important thing. But I think I'd probably need a partner for that. Somebody who's half my age, perhaps, who wants to share the message and maybe be more involved in social media activities. That could be great. I'd love to collaborate with somebody in that situation who wants to talk to their generation a little bit. I have a suspicion that a lot of younger people, the youngest of the Gen Y or whatever they are now, they are pretty cautious people. I think they're by and large not so likely to go drink beer and drive around the city. Some of them don't want to drive at all. And troubles me. Not because I think that everybody needs to be a single car household or something, but I think that the best time to learn driving is when you are a teenager. You will never have better reaction time, perception ability, learning ability than you will between the ages of 16 and 21. And if you let that pass without ever getting in a car, without ever trying it, without at least taking a driver's safety course, take it like you would a Spanish class. Take it anyways. Get yourself generally familiar. And teach yourself some safety items. Not for two reasons. One, you're going to find yourself a passenger in a car. If you're not going to drive, you will be a passenger. Like it or not, passengers have an effect on driving behavior. If you establish boundaries with your friends and others, say, I'm not comfortable with what you're doing right now. If you learn the importance of a seatbelt as a passenger, all of these things can have an effect on the driver, first of all. Second of all, there's the passenger advocate component. When you're in a crash, you still need to know safety protocols as a passenger. What if you're a passenger in a car, and the guy who's driving it's dead, gal, whoever was driving it is dead? What the heck do you do? You need to be prepared for this too. And I am fully in favor of safety courses for passengers. If you decide you're a non-driver for life, fine. Still take some safety courses and information. And don't be an absentee person who's treating it like the subway system. Either the train runs or it doesn't. No. There's more to this than just going on a ride. If you're using rideshare services, there are a lot of safety issues with rideshare services. You need to know to report unsafe driving, what they're doing wrong, what they shouldn't be doing. Are they playing on their phone the whole time they're driving you across town and charging you for it? You need to report that. You need to know that's not okay. So that's the third most important thing for non-drivers. The third most important thing is to be prepared for the event that you do end up having to operate a vehicle. Like it or not, something will happen at some point in your life. It may be in another 10 years where your mom breaks her leg and needs you to drive her car from her house to drive her to go and you may have to drive someone to a hospital. You may have to drive, you've got the sudden emergent, errand where mom needs you to drive her car for her or something, right? There's just too many scenarios that can come around that really will force you to drive at some point, even if you're not licensed. And you want to be ready for that. It could be as simple as you're in a field and somebody needs you to drive the farm truck across the field or something, a dude range. You just don't know where you're going to end up. You could be on a vacation in a foreign country or something. There's just too many scenarios, like I said. One way or another, whether you can envision it or not right now, there's going to be a time when you're going to have to drive a car. You may not like it, you may not be ready for it, and you may be kicking and screaming inside, but you're going to be operating that car. You're going to do it because your life depends on it. You're going to do it because you're stranded. You're going to do it because, like the book Hatchet, where the guy's pilot died and he flew the plane. It's kind of that situation that can come about. And you need to be prepared. And that's the kind of crisis moment that you need to think of. That's the new crisis. For me, the crisis is I'm always driving. I need to be ready for when something happens. But for non-drivers, they need to be ready for when they have to drive. And you may not like it. You may think, okay, maybe I'm going to go ahead and practice. Maybe instead of taking the train out to the IKEA in Brooklyn, I'll rent a car for the day, or use an app, a Turo or something, and just drive a car. Just do it. Maybe I'll go back and get that driver's ed course, get licensed, just to have it. You know, all of those things sound like good ideas to me. Maybe it's once a year you rent a car, drive it on a trip somewhere, out of state or a few hours away to visit somebody. Instead of taking the quick flight, I'll just go ahead and drive a car for practice and to save on rideshare charges or something. All that's a great idea. And practice your safety. Practice using mirrors. Practice all those things that regular drivers do without thinking, so that if you really are in a crisis situation sometime, you've got to drive a car, that you're not going to let your lack of skill, say, cause someone to bleed to death in the back seat or something, right? This is something that you can do to help yourself and help others. Because if you're in a high-stress situation and you're driving, the odds of you causing a crash to others, harming yourself or others, they're all very high. So the more skill bedrock you can have, whether it's some training when you're young, even if you don't plan to drive to school every day, or you don't want to live in a city and have a car, all fine and good, but have that basic experience. I'm not going to say it's like riding a bicycle, because it's not. It's a lot more like piloting a plane than it is a bicycle. You're not going to get the innate sense of what to do back. It's not going to just flood back to you and help you. But it's a heck of a lot better than nothing. That kid in Hatchet who flew that plane, you know, he's probably got a little more experience than I do if he had to fly a plane, right? And so it's that kind of logic, that kind of thinking. That would be my message to the youngsters who are anti-driving. And maybe you think it's causing global warming and the end of the world and all of this. Fine. But it is a necessary evil at some point in your life. That's all I've got to say about that. I don't think you will be able to live the rest of your life, in the United States anyways, without getting behind the wheel of a vehicle at some point. I just don't see it. Statistically, it's just not going to happen. Unless you're living in a commune or something, or a cult, and you have your food grows right there, and you're not relying on the outside world or infrastructure or something. It's statistically unlikely. So, at any rate, it's great to be at 100,000 views. It's great to be on the 100th video. You know, honestly, is it the 100th? I'm sure I've had a couple that didn't work out right. You know, the file got corrupted or something, and I never uploaded it. But, you know, here we are. And honestly, I had to stop doing this for a lot of the warm months of the year because my phone would burn very hot in the dashboard of the car. And I don't know how to fix that. Again, I've been really struggling with hardware choices and uploadability, if you will. I've had the phone overheat so hot that it actually just stopped functioning during a filming event. So maybe I can get a fan that blows on it or something while it's filming in the warmer months. Maybe there's a shade apparatus I could put over the phone. I don't know. But if there is something I can do next summer, I'll be thinking about it. And there's one more thing I want to take note of, and that's that, you know, we've gotten to 100,000 views, not only with some months of the year not filming at all, but it's also been less than 1 year. We have not hit our 1 year mark, which will be in late next month. So if I had to have a goal, and I'm getting about 1 subscriber a day right now, and I thank you all so much, I love it. I would love for us to hit 50 subscribers in the next month, because that could change how this all works. I wouldn't have to download and then upload the footage manually. It takes a long time. Sometimes I get to work and the upload doesn't actually get to that was a little dicey. It doesn't actually get to the YouTube until 10 or 11 o'clock. So the file is consuming space on my phone. It's slowing down the phone. It's trying to get the file uploaded and processed in the system, and it takes a lot of time. What I can do after I've hit 50 subscribers is I can live stream the whole drive. And you say, what makes that useful? Well, a couple things. One, I think it would make it easier to have guests appear, potentially. I can have interactions during the drive that are live, and it can also allow people to follow along with me as the drive happens. And I'm not sure that's a good thing or not. Obviously, I don't want to be interacting with social media during a drive if I'm driving. That's not smart. Look at this bizarre aircraft. What the heck is that? It's not moving. I don't know if you can see this, but I'm going to move. I don't know if you can see that thing in the sky. It is not an airplane. It is not a helicopter. What the actual? I don't know what I'm seeing. How are... That is such a strange object. I don't know, guys. This world is crazy. I think it was a cargo airplane, but it was just flying at a funny angle. I don't know. I'm going to go back and look at that and see what the heck that was. It definitely had a bizarre flight pattern to me. It was like suspended in midair. It looked like an airplane. I think there's some maneuvers that pilots can do to do that, but that's not normal. We're not close to the airport either, by the way. We're on a path to the airport, but we're still several miles, unfortunately, from the airport. So I need to keep enjoying listening to me for a few more minutes. Yeah, so we've got some big moments. You know, I'm at 100,000 views, 100 YouTube videos, 1 year of capturing my commute. 1 more year, knock on fake wood, if this car ran. Frankly, the repair costs this year were tiny compared to last year. Last year I dropped, I'm sick thinking about it, between $5,000 and $10,000 I invested in this vehicle last year. This year, less than $2,000. So the taxes keep going down. The repair costs are flatlining. I mean, every month this car gets me around is a blessing, quite honestly. So keep the hope and the faith alive that this old bird keeps on chirping, because it's been a good car for a lot of years. I've certainly invested my personal funds in keeping it afloat, as have previous owners, and we're just grateful. The biggest risk I have, honestly, talk about mitigating things you can't control and all this, it's somebody else crashing into me. not at fault accident. I can control at fault accidents to some extent, but I can't control a not at fault accident. And the fear that I have is a not at fault accident will total out my car and leave me really in a lurch because I won't be able to get the car fixed economically. Basically a fender bender can take away the car, salvage it, and tie it out, and leave me stuck, really stuck. And that's why I've toyed with buying another car just to be prepared or have a backup so that I don't have that sudden financial devastation, if you will. But I've been searching around and I just don't love what I've found car-wise. I do a lot of research, a lot of scanning, and then there's that annoying fact, two annoying facts. One, if I buy a car, driving it as much as I do would pretty much destroy its value over a few years pretty quick. Value, if I start driving my wife's car in 1 or 2 years, it would be worth thousands of dollars less. Each year I pack those miles on. This car is not having a meaningful depreciation anymore. And I appreciate the lack of depreciation, right? I don't feel like I'm damaging my balance sheet by driving this car, other than the somewhat high fuel cost. The second thing that annoys me is that I know that if I went and bought some beautiful gleaming new car that was just for me, which I'm sure it wouldn't be, but if it was, I would never drive it. I would just keep driving this. So why have 2 tax payments, 2 insurance payments and everything for a car that I'm not going to use? And that's the frustrating thing about end-of-life planning for a car, or even a person really, is figuring out how we know when time is up. And the best data that I have are the historic, interesting situation. There's an ambulance behind me. I think I'm going faster than you. The question is, how long do I expect this car to last, right? And guess what? There are no older models of this exact car. So what do? This is the very oldest model. I've seen these for sale in showroom condition. There's one in Alaska that had 10,000 miles on it, this exact year of car, selling it for $8,500. And I thought, what a steal. If I could get to Alaska and buy this car for $8,500 with only 10,000 miles on it, 20-some years old, ooh, that was tempting. Okay, this ambulance is like on. Now he's getting to the right. I don't know what I'm supposed to do sometimes. He's exiting at this ramp. You can hear that. I've also seen, and for categorization purposes, I think 02, 03, and 04 can somewhat be lumped together. They're not identical models. There are differences in the steering wheel and dash controls and things. But the 02 to 04 Escalade is what I use for research purposes and understanding the useful life. I have seen that model of car with 360, bobtail truck pulling over. As I was saying, 360,000 miles. Don't get me wrong, they were making some repairs. The car had been rode hard, it had some body damage. You know, they obviously could have totaled it, probably did at some point. And they just kept fixing it, driving it, drive. So, it's not impossible, is the point I'm trying to make. You might have to get over a transmission repair, which would be expensive. You know, another 7,000 or 8,000 in repairs, most likely, is what I should plan on. At least. You know, it's all highway miles for the most part. It's not that bad. So, what I thought was, the last year of this car's life is, I don't know if that's true. Nobody's going to know. I mean, what's the point where I call this a done deal? My wife told me the car's dead. The last time I took it in the shop, they wanted $500 to replace the blower for the HVAC system in the rear. Air conditioning and heating now do not work in the rear system because my wife did not approve me paying that repair cost. And I was either way. I didn't have the wherewithal for the expense myself either. But they said, you know what, you can always come back and do it when you're having a better financial time. And, we've got it in the system. You paid for the diagnostic, $200. And so we know what to do if and when you decide to pull it. Okay. So I know that this car needs at least that repair. And this sort of thing will keep adding up until eventually there will be a mission critical repair that I'll just say, based on that and all the other things, you probably won't use this car anymore. We'll say goodbye to it. Trade it in, sell it off, whatever it is. That's the most likely. But it will be running. I don't see us being in a situation where this thing just doesn't run at all. It'll just be an economic decision or something. Come on, guys. If you're gonna pass, go the speed limit. The car had a plastic back window. One headlight. We should all count our blessings and remember what to be thankful for. We have bad glass in our windows. I interviewed for a job once, and my passenger window, no, it was a driver's window. I would have to get out and put a rain poncho over the door because my window was broken out. And I'd like to think maybe that gave me some help getting the job. I don't know. But it's not a good look when you can't lock you can't even lock your truck because somebody broke into it. I eventually did get a new window to get it repaired, but I couldn't do that right away. Anyways. So yeah, we started out at about 250,000 miles. And we're now at less than a year, we've got 14,000 miles on top of that. And 1 year hasn't even elapsed. So we'll probably be at 265,000 miles by this time, by January 30th when the channel started. Most likely. That's a long way to travel. We travel together to some degree. Wow, that plane just came right over the car here. Southwest Airlines jet. I won't call that a UFO. I can very clearly tell what that was. Okay. We are just about to our destination. But I guess I just want to say thank you to the strangers out there. I don't share my identity and I don't tell people that I do this really. But and that's what makes it better, is that people who are joining us are the ones who share the interest and aren't just joining of their names, and see their faces, and see the way they were crumpled up on the ground or in the car, the facial expressions. It's a lot to handle. At least I didn't. Anyways, we are nearing our destination. Let's see if I'm too early again. I'm boarding in less than 1 hour. So as I see it, I'm boarding in 50 minutes. A little under 50, a little over 50 minutes. I'm going to get to the terminal, get through security, get to the gate. And get myself some water in my system. I would say we're in good shape. But I don't have a lot of time to spare. Who the heck wants time to spare in an airport? Not this guy. Not this guy. Sit around and catch COVID. Look at all the... Well, folks, I think I will bid you adieu and say happy 100. It's been good.